Here, I'm seeing the audio, but testing. Might have to turn the speaker up some, or I can do it here. Still not hearing it, Garrett.
Testing.
Yeah, we're still trying to get the audio going.
Testing.
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hello, Carol.
Hi, could you hear me?
Yes, very nice.
Hold on a second.
Maybe not.
We're working on it. Hold on. No, I definitely.
He'll get it.
All right, Carol, can you hear us? We can hear you.
Testing.
I can hear you. Well, I could hear you, and Teresa.
Hello, testing.
And Gerhard.
Hello. This one's working.
All right, we're getting our levels fixed here, but
I'm not getting any pickup. Can we pick me up?
all right, Carol, if you want to do another mic check.
Sure. Testing. Your volume just got lower, but I can increase my.
No, we can hear you fine. We're just trying to find the right level of mics and speakers and everything else. You're
Okay.
coming through great.
Testing.
Hello.
Hello.
Ba-da-ba-ba.
Hello. Am I going through the system? Yeah.
Yes. Well, at least I can hear you.
Now, do we have an audience mic?
Hear me?
That one.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm just going to. Hello. Yeah, this works.
I think so. Good.
We got you surrounded.
Haha, that was funny.
Did you hear me?
We can hear you, Carol. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I just thought you heard me say, "Why are you whining, honey?"
Oh,
I was talking to my dog. Sorry. I was trying to whisper.
We have standards here.
Good evening, everyone. Are we all connected and wired in?
Think so. Hello?
You're wired in?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You got it all? All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Harmony CDD November monthly meeting. Welcome to everybody in the audience and all our board members. Two of our members, Carol Castle, Supervisor Castle is by Zoom with us. So she is in that location. And we'll do the roll call at this point. Supervisor Berube.
Here.
Supervisor Lee.
Here.
Supervisor Castle.
Present.
And Supervisor Kramer is here. Supervisor Scarborough, is he checked in through Zoom yet?
Here. Here. Can you
All
hear me?
right.
Excellent.
All right. So we're all present and accounted for with two members appearing by Zoom. I want to thank everybody for coming out. The first section on our agenda is audience comments. This is a chance for our audience members to come before the board and use a maximum of 3 minutes to let the board know of any items that you have concerns over or are interested in, and your thoughts. We ask you to limit it to 3 minutes. This is your time to give to the board and not a back and forth for us to argue with you. So do we have any audience requests? Okay, is anybody here in the audience that's interested in speaking? Yes, sir, if you'd like to. If you'll come up, and we do have a mic that if you will use it, we record all of our meetings, and then they do the minutes, the near verbatim minutes from those.
Tom Baraki, I live at in South Lake.
Okay, can you give us your street address?
3470 Sagebrush.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One is on the new dog park. It looks lovely, but it looks like one area. I'm just wondering if it will ever be split for Big Little.
My understanding is that it was going to be a single dog park area. And if we could ask everybody to silence their cell phones, that would be helpful. So the plan was just to have it one single dog park area. If we find it's getting a lot of use and the residents want to split it, then we could consider that option, depending on where we could set a fence. But we do have the
It
two.
was set up- it appears to have been set up that way with two entrances.
We do have two separate entrances to give us some versatility. So that's,
And then, just one more, and it's a landscaping, and I've already talked with Gerhard about it, is I'm concerned on Five Oaks, the backside across from the Southwick Clubhouse, is the proliferation of dollarweed. He gave a plausible explanation. I'm still concerned because once that grabs a hold, it's almost impossible to get rid of. So, whatever can be done about that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you much.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other members of the audience? Yes, sir.
This is Nancy Snyder, 7023 Five Oaks Drive. I wondered what the cameras at the both entrances were used for.
I'm sorry, do you have some comments about them, Nancy, or?
No, I just wondered what we got them for, what they're used for, but what the, what they're
They
used for.
were originally put in when we had, I guess it was last year when we had the theft throughout the neighborhood. We had a number of car burglaries. And that's why they were put in. They are not functioning at this point in time, and we will be addressing that in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jerry Mick. I'm at 3449 Middlebrook Place. And my question is concerning the ponds. When we bought a piece of property, the backside faces on a pond and the golf course. Nice views, that's why we bought it. In the past, twice a year and then sometimes once a year, it was cut back to 8, 10, 12 inches, whatever. And it would grow up to about 2-3 feet, then be trimmed. Hasn't been cut in 2 years and is now over my head. The view is shrinking daily. I can hardly see the golf course from it. And I just wonder what your plan is on these ponds.
Okay. The pond issue, Cervello should be starting their biannual, or they do it twice a year, cutting of those edges. And those will be monitored to make sure that all the ponds are cut this year. Unfortunately, your developer did not put in a littoral zone, which is moderate sized plants that never grow up that high. And so we are battling that issue. Yes, they do grow. You're welcome.
You got to
Thank you,
remember,
sir.
just for a second, the reason that buffer zone is there is to catch stuff running off the grass, primarily nutrients from getting in the pond. So it's working. The stuff
Working
is
too
growing,
well.
and it's getting the nutrients, it's keeping it out of the pond. So there's a plus and a minus, right?
Okay. Mhm. Well, they should be out shortly to trim that. for
Well, to speak to that, if it's to where I'm looking, 3449, you said that pond behind your that house there, that's actually a golf course pond. There is no CDD property between the residential properties on that side of Middlebrook and the golf course. So while we do have our we're working with our surveillance to be mowing the ponds that we do have direct access for. And also in the past, I know we've done maintenance with the golf course, but as of right now, I believe that is completely on the golf course for maintaining.
There are a number that are not.
Okay,
the one-
if we can,
We'll
yeah,
figure it out.
if we can get, I don't want to, because your 3 minutes have been
Yep.
sucked up by the rest of us.
I'll bring it
Um,
up during the landscaping portion.
But yeah, if you can hang on, then we'll see. Any other audience comments at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed with our agenda. Next up on the agenda is our contract report, Cervello.
It's gonna be brief today, especially the ponds. My guys did do the ponds over here at Lakes Department. They weeded only up to the ponds edge.
Mhm.
If there's any cattails, overgrowth that is already in the pond, that will be,
We'll have to do a treatment.
that'll be
Can you please use the microphone?
Oh,
Gerhard, did you take it away? Sorry. Thank you for letting us know.
You're welcome.
So when you say weed eat,
Hello?
that's not typically what the zone has been. It's typically been cutting everything back to 8 inches or so. We're on a different program now?
no, our mower can't get that close, the bat wing.
Okay,
If I get it that close, there's two possibilities.
in the mud.
I'll end up in the pond, which is not good, or my mower will get stuck, which is not good. The only truck that could pull it out is a 4x4, which is currently being serviced in DeBerry. So I had the guys go in with the weed eaters up to the edge of the pond, the water's edge, and cut it down at least to about this high. It's about 6 to 8 inches.
Okay.
And that will be happening in December. Because this week, my guys concentrated on doing the pine needle, the mulching of the pine needle,
Right.
which is finished.
Mhm.
Next week, I will not be here. But they will be continue doing some detail. The following week, which is the last week of November, will be mowing.
Okay, so there will be more pond mowing then.
Yeah, on that week, I'll send 2 guys to go do the ponds, which are by the dog park on the left-hand side, the one behind the school, the 2
Mhm.
over at the estates, and the big one at.
At the lakefront. Okay. All right.
That's all I got today.
Any other questions? There are, and I'm not sure what order you want to do this. There are 2 Cervello proposals. Would you like us to do those while you're here?
Sure.
And then you can take off. Okay. Without objection, we'll look at these 2 proposals. They were in your agenda packet, page 81 and page 83. The first one has several locations. It's to add bedding plants to 5 Oaks East Roundabout, southwest corner of Town Square, and 5 Oaks across from the townhomes. Any discussion from the board on this proposal?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that we're trying to spruce the place up, but, and I'm going back to something I've been yakking about for a couple of years off and on. We have hundreds, if not thousands of square feet of sod that is in terrible condition along Catbrier, 5 Oaks, Schoolhouse. Some of it is actually dead. There's a few houses there along 5 Oaks where there is no sod left in the front. And we've talked about this over and over and over again. I don't know what the answer is, But I think we need to bring it to a head, because when you ride around and look, the areas that we are maintaining in front of all these premium homes along what is the Boulevard Streets looks far worse than what homeowner standards are for their own lawns. And I think it behooves us to get that under control. I mean, we've talked about Jasmine and we've talked about this and
Okay.
we've talked about that, but it's a mess and it's not getting any better.
I think it was the last meeting, Supervisor Castle was going to work with Cervello to come up with a solution for those heavily shaded areas that the grass is not growing. I don't know, is Supervisor Castle still with us?
I am, and I was not aware that, well, I was not aware that that I was helping to come up with a solution. I was going to be available to meet with and discuss, but I think maybe we have the horticulturalist help us with making some, giving us some options for what we could do to replace that dead sod with something that would have some longevity, and that what I brought up was that we need a plan. We were talking about replacing some sod with Liriope or something last month in a couple of places. But my point was that we're going to have this issue all over Harmony, and let's create a long-term plan. But however, I don't recall seeing in the minutes or recall from the meeting that I was going to meet with Cervello and create a plan. So
Okay, my apologies.
that's okay. I'm willing
understand that.
to work with them to create some solutions, but I think we need to speak with somebody who, has some experience in a number of different communities where they have the situation and what the options are.
I believe that, I remember that we were supposed to meet there and Scotty was to give out ideas, not Miss Carol.
Okay, well,
I never received any request for a meeting time or date.
okay. Is Perez, would you like to step to the fore?
You knew this was coming.
This is Brett Perez. He's with Infomark, and he is the closest thing we have to an landscape expert, but he is, I've been very impressed, so.
Sure. So, one of the things we can look at, heavily shaded areas, there's a couple things we can look at doing is thinning out some oak trees additionally to what we're, the current lifting, and possibly looking at replacing with, they have new varieties of shade tolerant. I believe most of the turf out here is Floritam. So, over
Okay.
time, that Floritam doesn't do well in the shade. So what we can look at is there's Pro Vista, there's Bitter Blue, there's Palmetto that have some shade.
Okay, you're losing me totally. I love you, but
No, so those are just different varieties of the same
can
harvest.
I get you
To go out and look at it?
to go out and look at it,
Sure.
put some ideas together that we might be able to implement,
Yes.
get with Supervisor Castle just to go over what you're thinking of, and then bring it back to the board next month?
Absolutely.
You're
I'll work
wonderful.
with Scotty and Pete as well.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, with this proposal for the bedding plants, do I have any board discussion on this proposal? Do we want to go ahead with it? Do we want to hold off until we get the other areas addressed?
I have a question about it. My question is how this proposal came to be. In other words, who spotted these spots? Who made the request for a proposal? How did it come about?
That proposal was from an audit that Gerhard and I drove around. That was
From
August.
the monthly report that is done on landscaping. It was a request for a proposal for those areas.
Sorry, hard to hear you, Angel.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was due to the monthly report that is done on the community. So a proposal was requested via that report.
I see.
So it was our management folks made a request of Cervello for the proposal.
Got
So
it.
the question is, do we want to go forward with it now? Do we want to hold off and do a more comprehensive workup? our landscape plan, or do we want to do it, in sizable bites?
I'm fine with doing it either way. I'm not sure that there's much of an advantage unless there's a cost advantage to doing more at once than smaller, areas.
Okay, does any of the board members have a preference on moving forward with this proposal or tabling it to a later date?
Well, I said what I said before, and I still think that we need to find out what Brett and those folks bring forward, and, let's make the place look pretty all at once. The sod is, it looks terrible. And if I lived in
Okay.
any of those houses, and I think let's do the sod first and then do the details after the fact, because the sod has just been terrible forever and it's not getting better. That's just my view.
The solder or some shade alternative to the
Yes,
sod. Okay.
yeah.
All right, so at this point in time, unless I hear otherwise from any of the board members, we'll go ahead and hold off on this proposal until we work out those shaded areas along our boulevard that are devoid of life. Work on those first and then come back to this at a later date.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right, the second proposal is a proposal at the Pocket Park at Buck Lane. This is an area, it was lush with ginger, and it was a really beautiful pocket park. I understand that it was, I'm not too sure exactly why, but it was cut down, I guess expecting the plant material to rejuvenate itself. Is that why it was mowed down to the ground?
Ginger, you can cut down.
Okay,
And it'll
well,
it'll
it
come
was a
back.
serious mistake cutting it down.
Yeah.
That area of the neighborhood has a lot of kids from age 4 to about 14 that are playing heavily in that pocket park. After it was cut all the way back, they came in, they've been playing heavily on there. And it's wonderful to see and hear them play and have a good time, but it has completely destroyed the sod that was there and has seriously inhibited the plant life from returning. So again, I think I would hate to go through and put all this in because I know exactly what's going to happen now that the kids have made this a play area for themselves. It's not going to survive. So I would ask that we come up with a plan for at least the next 4 or 5 years, or as long as that area has so much play activity in that pocket park, of a more versatile landscape plan for this pocket park. Do you have any comments? You and I live right around the corner from it.
Kids play right there. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll go back to Mr. Perez. What's the most abuse tolerant? Well, some grass,
AstroTurf.
it may not be a bad idea.
Mhm.
Some grass is more tolerant of play surfaces than others. Celebration Bermuda comes to mind. Bahia seems to be when you can keep it green, right? For kids playing, what do we put underneath?
Or transcriptions.
Yes. To answer your question, stay away from Bahia.
Right.
Okay, there's too much shade there. There's limited herbicides that you can apply to control weeds. It doesn't handle wear very well. Bermuda, whatever variety, whether it's 419 like on the golf course or Celebration, would be a viable option. The concern I have with it is if the current scope and the maintenance plan that is in contract now doesn't suffice to, you're going to want to aerify to relieve compaction. You're going to want to top dress. You're going to want to verticut. You're going to have increased fertilizations because it takes about 7 pounds of nitrogen per year. So it's a heavier maintained turf stand than St. Augustine, Bahia, Zoysia. Zoysia has some wear capabilities, but it doesn't recover well. I think a viable option in that park, since it's so heavily played, would be to look at all the new synthetic turfs that are rolling out, and a lot of vendors that are installing them. I think Site One Landscape offers it, where Cervello can get a price, or we can go straight to Site One and get a price to have them come out and measure and put it in. Would probably be the most viable option long term in terms of maintenance costs. Because even with Celebration Bermuda, if it's too heavily played on, then you're looking at replacing these patches because it'll just be bare
Sure.
dirt. So that's my suggestion.
I think these kids are probably going to be there. It's been most of a year that they've been heavily out there, and I'm looking at the size of the kids. And I mean, that's what this place is about, dogs and kids, right? So,
And trees.
and keep going, pools, ponds, weeds. And so I like that, because to just keep throwing grass and whatever variety it is, and just having to keep getting killed and dying or drought, whatever, doesn't make sense. So I like that idea with the synthetic turf.
And there is a antibacterial spray that every once in a while you have to put on it, but it's very safe. It's eco-friendly. And that helps reduce the risk.
Well, that brings up the other thing, dogs.
Well, the dogs have to stay off. I mean, there needs to be no dog signs on it, but there's no enforcement, obviously.
That's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I
I
know.
mean, there's a doggy pot right there. People walk through that park.
It gets,
We can always move a doggy pot.
well.
I depend on that doggy pot.
I think if there were signs, no dogs on this, there's still grass all the way around it. So we just direct people a little bit. Hey, you just spent 10 grand on this turf. Please don't let your dog go on it. Okay. That's a great idea. I like that. Whoever, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman,
No problem.
and a comprehensive, there's a whole bunch of ginger there and there's jasmine in the back. The whole thing needs to be spiffed up.
Yeah, and hopefully if you replace it with a viable option for kids to play on, then planting shouldn't be as big of an issue. Now they have something that they enjoy playing on versus running around in the bed. So you should be
Right.
able to reestablish plant material. Hopefully.
Kids being kids.
Right, and you're gonna have to put in some larger plant materials. They're respectful, they're really respectful kids.
They're decent kids. I mean,
Bougainvillea with thorns and I'm joking.
Sheesh.
Okay, we'll work on that.
yeah.
I
Okay.
have an invite going out to Cervello already for Cap Rider, and we'll add Buck Lake Park to that.
Good.
Buck Lake.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for Cervello at this point?
Your stuff will be next month, right, David? The stuff the Billy Trail will be coming up next month, right? With surveillance.
All right, hearing no other discussion for Cervello or questions? Appreciate you being here.
Kind of lost Teresa's sound.
Pardon?
Oh.
Oh, my goodness. It's walking on me. Hello? Hello?
Not yet.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Probably hear me without the microphone.
Somehow it got shut off.
I didn't.
That's better.
Probably just open the door and I can yell at her.
All right, okay. Did you have anything else for us? Okay, we'll move on to our next staff report, and I'll let you exit stage left. Thank you so much.
Happy
Ms.
Thanksgiving.
Betancourt.
See you next month.
All right, next item on our agenda, staff reports, a district engineer, David Hamstra,
Also known as the busy guy.
very busy.
You write lots of great reports.
Thank you.
Oh, it's set up
Probably
for,
I hope you don't
but
spend
now
as
it's
much
not
time writing
gonna,
reports.
it's
as you
not
do
gonna
working.
pick you up.
Yes.
We'll see if it'll pick him up.
All right. Like Steve, I can talk loud if needed. So, all right, Garden Road. Last meeting we had 3 weeks ago, the county approved it, Florida Gas Transmission approved it. We didn't get South Florida's blessing at the time. We finally agreed upon an exemption category.
which they're calling safety improvements, which is an exempt activity that got submitted this morning. As soon as they approve that, we will then put in the street to local contractors, bid documents, to get a quote to do the work. So again, this is the permanent solution, not the Band-Aid in between that we talked about last meeting. So that's going forward in the right direction. The estates, I went out with Brett and Gerhard and myself on November 9th to look at the pipes that are currently clogged because they were 2 feet or 3 feet under the dirt for many, many years. Talked to Brett and Gerhard. Infomark's not comfortable getting a back truck to do the work. So I'm going to call Atlantic Pipe Services, who I've used multiple times on cleaning of pipes. And it's all the pipes that are outside the right of way in people's backyard that will be flushed out and made to work again for next rainy season because they're full of dirt and the pipes are too small to get freed up on its own. So
To that point, we have several other drains. One in particular, right in front of the Lake Shore Park restrooms, there's a drain in the ground that no longer drains. If we're gonna clean some in-ground drainage pipes, we might want to identify a few others. If a truck's coming out, you know what I'm talking about. There's at least one there. There's probably 3 or 4 others scattered around town, and whenever it rains, they pile up because the junk goes in. So
I think by the dog park too, by
Yeah.
the dog wash.
there's several of these in-ground drains. I don't know where they go, but they clearly go somewhere.
Yeah.
okay.
There's also a culvert near schoolhouse, right next to the school, under the trail to the dog park that is horribly clogged.
After we get these inlets clean, we're going to put some rock around them so they don't get hidden and buried like they did in the past.
Good.
And hopefully they'll function better. So,
So we just added to your scope there.
pardon?
We just added to your scope
Yes, 2 more items.
for Atlantic
know.
Pipe.
So once this is done, do we have a way to enforce or work with our builders out there to make sure that they don't, that they put in the proper?
Well, after Gerhard got to hold the contractor the day after we saw it, and they immediately put it up, so they didn't balk about doing it. So
we just need to keep an eye on.
anybody that starts doing construction,
We need to call them and.
Teresa, your mic is off again.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. All right. We're gonna nurse the batteries along until refills come.
and like I said, we're going to put rock or riprap around these once they're cleaned out, so they're easily exposed and maintainable. So
Okay, great.
Cherry Hill rear yard swales, I got the survey yesterday from Johnson Surveying. They surveyed the house in question at 3170, as well as the swales on both sides. That came in today. We'll then do a limited grading plan and get with Infomark to get some local contractor to go back there and regrade the swales and then resod them so it flows properly. Billy's Trail, we've been out there a few times with Infomark. And Dan, thank you very much for all your input. So what I submitted separately as a proposal would probably be considered the Cadillac version of the survey versus maybe a pared back version. I still recommend the area at the north end by the cul-de-sac as priority. If y'all want to approve that separately tonight, and then monitor whether or not we do need to do the staking midway south towards the pump station. Now that we got the new aerials that came in today, we brought them in. You get a better visual fixation where the trails should be. And so maybe with the board's consideration, I'll ask Johnson to focus only in the north half, where we're going up the new trail, doing a dog lake and connecting with the existing trail. So that area is really tight and needs to do some work. So I'm going to guess, instead of the $8,700 I gave you, we'll go back to the original $4,500 to do the topo and location of the north end of Billy's Trail. That's the board.
I have a question as to why Johnston's alone has been sought for bids and no other bidders.
Sure. I've been using for 35 years a company called Southeastern Surveying, and they're out of Orlando. And they've done all my work for 35 years. But when I called them, they're first to admit that the travel costs that come down to Kissimmee and Osceola County, they're not going to be competitive. And so the reason I went with Johnson was 2 reasons. I have a colleague who I've known for many years, has his own company in Kissimmee, and he highly recommends them as a surveyor. And number 2, they've done a lot of your prior work, so they have local knowledge, they know where their control is at. And so I think And I try not to, as a professional, price other professionals against each other. Once you establish a relationship with somebody, for example, this week, we needed some wetland conservation lines. They quickly gave me the AutoCAD files within a couple hours and saved us a lot of time and money to recreate them. So it's, to me, it's more of a establishing a relationship. I keep looking at the screen. She's looking at my backside. So
Yep.
that's the reason why I typically, once I accept a relationship with a surveyor, a geotech, an environmentalist, as long as I'm doing a good job and I think the price is fair. And I know that my other surveyor can't come down here to Kissimmee and do a comparable price, but I'm at the direction of the board if they want me to reach out to strangers and get prices. And so
We're probably saving the learning curve cost of having somebody new come in because Johnson's already has all the baseline.
control. I got all the control.
They've got it. So they know where they're going right away, where somebody else is going to have to develop all that is what I think I'm hearing.
Several months ago, I had offered the contact information for Kissimmee Valley Surveying, but it doesn't seem they've been contacted. So that was, I just, it seemed expensive to me and I just wanted, I'm not the expert in surveying costs. It just seemed like a lot of money for, a relatively narrow survey area, not that large. And so that's why I wanted to inquire as to why no other bids were sought. And there's, I'm happy to give you that contact information. Willard Beekman is the owner. He's done work for me. I found him dependable, reliable, reasonably priced. So I'm just putting that out there that there are alternatives that we could at least see whether, the price from Johnston's is reasonable.
Give it to the board if you want me to call them or use them next time. I'm open either way. So.
I don't know, again, for revised, maybe we could get a quote from both. If we're bringing it down, I mean, I understand the professional, you don't want to bounce them off each other, and it is nice. Johnston has been working with us for a long, long time. But I feel since we are working with public monies, it might be good just every once in a while at least to get a double check on, where we are and what's happening with those prices. So I would be in agreement. The scope and the graphics and everything is already prepared. It's just a matter of sending it off to another company and getting a double check quote. So if you could do that, that would be helpful. Again, just in every once in a while, double check on Johnston's can't hurt.
You want to give me a upper limit that if I get a quote from either one, we can get started, or you want me to wait till next month to bring back the second quote and make a decision?
Well, that brings up a question I have. You had this in two pieces, the north sector and the south sector. Why would we not do it all together? You suggested potentially breaking it apart. Was that for cost or?
No, the tighter area, the more awkward area is the very north end by the cul-de-sac, because we're going outside the CDD parcel onto private property back into tie into the existing trail. So I wanted it to be surveyed topographically and for the limits to be done. Then when I walked it by myself and with the group, there are a few areas that we're getting close to the conservation area. I want to make sure we're not clearing or doing work in conservation land. The lots should be easy to recover, but if you haven't been out there recently, all their dirt's washing back on your property. I've reached out, by the way, to Jay
Malvers.
and they have not responded to me twice about cleaning up their mess. So they might be property corners, but they may be buried under 6 or 12 inches of dirt. But I'm mostly concerned to make sure that when we do the clearing and establish a trail, we're not getting into conservation lands or things like that. Talked to Teresa a little bit about what the conservation lands allow us to do, whether they're passive trails. So that's the reason I'm maybe considering we still focus in the north area, which is critical, and be mindful of the map that I just produced today, the back of the property corners. We can make an educated guess where the trails should go for the majority of it. If I have to come back with a part B, we will with the surveyor, but
Yeah, the thing is, I went out there yesterday and re-hiked it, and it's fairly clear where the boundaries are, especially since there are some existing conservation area signage that we put on the boundaries and some of the old survey markers. So most of these areas, in addition, I went and re-reviewed our conservation area easements with the Water Management District. Unlike some of the conservation area easements, the easements that we have do allow for passive recreational use within the conservation areas. If we do any of the heavier end passive uses, like having to put a boardwalk in for a trail or something of that sort, then we would have to go in and get additional permitting. But just the fact that we may edge up against a conservation area would not be a violation of that. The other thing we've got is some of the features are very distinct, and some of the areas broaching up to where they were doing that sheet flow across the trail. That's still real dry, but that area in there, we're going to have to hug those back property lines really tight. Because it may not have been 20 years ago, but it is now wetlands. It would be jurisdictional wetlands, and it is growing a large crop of old world climbing fern. So we need to go in there, get that old world climbing fern cleaned up, and we'll have to hug those back lot lines in there. We may be able to.
that'll be picked up with this first survey, so.
Exactly. So with that top end. So that we don't delay it any further and we try and get Billy's Trail reopened, because the big sticking point, I think we can handle the point where we go under the tree branch and the earlier point. But the big sticking point is going to be that actual connection to Billy's Trail, where they filled in so much of that property right up to the property lines. That's going to be hard. And that does need to get surveyed. So I would entertain a motion to set an upper limit. Allow Mr. Hamster to get 2 quotes and then to go ahead and get that survey. Does anybody have a recommendation on the upper limit?
Oh, go ahead,
I
Steve.
heard 8,700 a minute ago.
The
No.
original number I have.
That was for-
$500, the
Okay.
original. And then I
Right.
brought in the south end, and the reason the number went up substantially, I then asked Johnson to include putting PVC poles every so many feet along the edge and to install concrete monuments. So we don't have to do this again. So that's why you saw a big jump in the cost, is they would be cutting line along the conservation area, sinking concrete monuments to establish permanently the trail CDD parcel. So
Okay.
so I think 4,500 as the upper number should be sufficient, because I know at least that's what Johnston had for the north section. Now, if the second guy comes in at or below that, if he comes above it, I'll go back to Johnston and get started. If he comes in lower, I'll check his scope to make sure it's consistent, and then we'll get him started as well, so.
Okay.
Now, we had, this area had been surveyed, want to say within the last 2 years.
Mhm.
That extra cost of, doing the permanent markers, I mean, is that something we want to consider versus what you were saying earlier against maybe we have some leeway and, edging up to, what are everyone else's thoughts?
It just seems you do it right now and get it done and it's there. And to paraphrase Mr. Hamster, we don't have to go back and do it again, because we've done this before, I think.
Like, I want to say 3 times. I've seen 3 separate sets of markers, and that's why I'm avid about getting monuments put out there. So we're not
Well, that's
going
why
back.
We were also
and
gonna
back.
put PVC poles, so Gerhard can sink 4x4 inch wooden posts in the ground as trail indicators. So
Right.
there was
That
a
looked
reason
nicer.
why we had a lot more of the survey to include permanent ground and also for markers to be put in the ground to keep the trail guys where they're belonging. So
Because if you don't, you're just throwing money after money after money here. It's just the way that I see it.
So are we still talking about doing just the north part or both the north and south part of the trail, before it gets to the, wetland area? I'm a little unclear.
Well, it's not my money.
Well-
I would like to see it done the right way the first time, but
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we go back with the portions of the trail that were included in the original proposal, 4,500. I don't think we need to survey the conservation area up front. I think we're good on that. That was added in. Let's see, that's in there.
Does that proposal include staking and a topographical survey? That's what I-
That did not include staking.
yeah, the north end is survey and staking, both at the north end.
And monuments and pole
Well,
pipe
I'm
for
going to make it
8,700.
clear to both firms whether or not we want to at least put the markers at the north end. So that's
Okay.
set for life and not.
Yes, let's do that. Why don't we start with that point? And then we can make, the trail markings don't have to be on our property boundary. Again, it's a trail. It just needs to be in our property somewhere. Does that make sense?
Well, we need the property markers, the permanent markers to be on the property line, right? The trail
Well-
markers that are going to go in later can
be-
be within those lines, but
Yes.
the permanent markers have to be
Yes, they will
on
be.
our property.
Right. The permanent markers for the survey for reference.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is if you look at this map, can we put it up or?
Sure.
And show folks what we're talking about. It's very convoluted.
That's the problem. You have about 25 to 30 kinks. along this
Exactly.
corridor.
Mm.
Moment, please.
Okay. well,
And that's not in an area that we can do any clearing of ground brush, right? I mean, it's,
we can clear within that boundary. We can clear on some of the edges
but
of
we
it.
can't unkink it is what I'm saying.
We cannot unkink it. And as you get from the section line north, the kinked part on the other side is owned by the Harmony, Florida Lands. We'll get to that a little bit later, but that property is currently still owned by the developer who did in the lakes and the enclaves and is
Sunterra.
doing Sunterra. Or Florida, yeah.
Yeah.
Harmony Florida Lands is the LLC that owns it now. So that's the kinked side. So we don't want to get over into that land. But I think we can more than accommodate a trail through our portion of that property without getting so close over to the kinked side
Okay.
that
so
we don't need to get every zig and zag of the
Right.
kink.
We're
is
gonna
what I'm-
mark, we're gonna have it surveyed, we're gonna have concrete markers, but with the scope of work for this is survey this zone, put permanent concrete markers and PVC pipes over the concrete markers for the
North end.
north end, the zigzaggy piece. That's the scope of work at this point, right?
Correct.
That's what we're talking about,
Correct.
with a not to exceed. Now, your $8,700 was
The whole
The whole,
soup to nuts.
the thing we just talked about, that, yeah, okay. I'm okay with approving that. I'll move to approve
with a not to exceed.
the
of-
scope of work that we just discussed with a not to exceed of $8,700.
Okay, that was the whole soup to nuts.
Right,
So you want to do the whole trail or not just the north end?
oh, I thought we were just talking about the north end,
North end is $4,500.
4,500.
but I thought it was another 4,200
If we
for
did
the,
entire trail.
so 4,500 includes the markers and everything?
At the
If
north
you
end.
just do the
Oh.
north end, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let me revise
Okay.
my motion. I will move to approve the scope of work we just discussed for the north end with a not to exceed of $4,500 from however many contractors Mr. Hampshire wants to go to. You have a motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
All right.
I hope these trails get used because we sure do spend a lot of time.
Yeah, they do that one. And the
Wow.
problem is we only have what, 2 trails, really 2 trails, maybe 2.5. Until the other conservation areas get turned over to us. And again, when I came across the passive recreational use in some of our conservation areas, I think it's time we reassess some of our conservation areas, work with Water Management District and put in a few more trails possibly if we can, to introduce some of our newer residents to the beauties of the Florida landscape. So we'll look at that.
Let me fly
and
through
then-
the rest of this because I know Tim and Ed are waiting. So
Oh, sorry.
right. RV boat and storage area. I'm sorry, Steve, I have not submitted the letter to the county yet. That will be done very soon to get permission to do the perimeter fence for the boat and storage area.
You don't need to apologize to me. It's okay.
Reserve study, I believe, last week, the draft came out to the board members to review. The supervisor, the chairman has already issued comments to Steve Schwartz, and he's already addressing those and whatever other comments you may have as a board. Harmony,
I had some questions about the reserve study. One of them was that it wasn't clear to me how they were doing their computation. There were some confusing parts to their study and explaining certain things, but also I felt that certain things were missing, like they had the basketball, like, poles and benches, but not the surface of the court. That wasn't
Okay.
included.
Right.
Also
Carol-
the board,
I'm sorry. If you can give them a summary, send them to, and we're going to be talking about later, possibly setting up a workshop so that we can workshop the reserve study. But that was definitely one of the things, the basketball court resurfacing was on the list that I sent in. But if each of the supervisors will go through the study and list out your questions and forward them on to Steve Schwartz or to Angel Montagna, our district manager, and they will forward them on to them. I got a quick response that he is working on getting all my answers. I mean, mine was a 4 or 5 page list to him. So rather comprehensive on questions. So if each of you could do that, then that would help us get the most comprehensive reserve study possible back.
okay.
You move right here so the camera can get you.
Oh, yeah. Now you're thinking.
There we go.
Now that he's almost finished, I'm gonna put you on the
Oh, he's
screen.
not yet,
so that's
so.
you again. Harmony Cove easements. Steve Boyd presented last meeting. You all approved it. Steve Boyd got it officially recorded with Osceola County. The recording easements are part of my report. So to me, that's coming off the list. We're done. So 5 Oaks Drive, I'm working with Brad and Gerhard to straighten out a little kink in one of the sidewalks, and that'll be officially done. Sidewalk maintenance, I turned over all the final exhibits to Gerhard last meeting. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll step out of it and then Infomark will implement their sidewalk maintenance program for future discussions. Footbridge, Brad and I walked the footbridges a couple weeks ago. I believe they're adequate. They're not perfect, but they're not horrible. And I'm okay with supporting y'all making your final payment to doctors to get them, I guess, closed out. The dog park, we did a final inspection on that. Gerhard already took care of some of the visual things we saw regarding some grading issues and some piles of debris. The only thing outstanding is for us to get with Toho Water Authority to run a service line inside the fence so we can wash down and keep clean your puppies and keep them watered during the hot summer months. The milling and resurfacing, I just haven't focused on that because that's gonna be a big ticket item. Not sure financially if you guys are ready to undertake that in a couple months or not. And that concludes my brief discussion. So.
Okay. And that House Bill 53, that is, do we have all the information we
We
need
have
to?
the infrastructure. I just have to come up with what they call an analysis between now and June 30th, and I will start working. on
Okay,
that
that
probably
20
this
years,
spring.
it's a 20-year
Yeah,
needs
based on the
analysis.
Population demands and things like that.
Okay,
You don't have to worry about water and sewer because that's other utility companies.
okay.
responsibility, so.
And the other thing in the reserve study, the comment they made was they only had a few of the as-built. I think we've got most of those or a lot of that information in the information Steve Boyd presented to you.
Gave me a lot of files. I don't recall seeing a lot of as-bills.
Okay.
Double check.
But if we could turn as much of that over to the reserve study folks as possible, they were stating that the largest high density polyethylene pipe that we had that they saw was 24 inches, and we know there's a 48-inch one out there.
I
So,
don't have them, or Steve doesn't have them. The county's been really forthcoming with them. I'll
so
get
the
them.
county should be.
Okay,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Did you check for your sub in the refrigerator?
All right, the next order of business is the district council.
Okay, good evening.
Oh,
Madam Chair, members. The first item is just a quick update on the discussions with the Ethics Commission on meeting at First Nature Ranch. I did get a call back from the executive director, Carrie Stillman, and she suggested I work with the gentleman who drafted the initial report. I contacted him and put in the wrinkle, if no money changes hands, essentially, would that still be considered a transaction? I'm still waiting on his response. We'll keep everybody updated. You have in the packet under our report an update to the change order policy. What it says is that change orders are discouraged. And then it says if the amount is of a cumulative change order is to exceed $5,000 or 10% of the contract value, whichever is less, I got it right here, thanks. Hold on, let me just read it. Change orders are discouraged and subject to the approval of the board when the cumulative amount of proposed change orders will exceed 5,000 or 10% of the contract value, whichever is less. The district manager may, in consultation with the board chair, approve change orders provided the cumulative amount of all change orders on a given contract do not exceed 5,000 or 10% of the contract value, whichever is less. So we'd be looking at a motion to accept this language and update your procurement policy.
so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the language and the update of the procurement procedure. Any discussion from the board? Okay, hearing
good.
none, but I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, motion passes.
Question
Okay,
for council.
Yes, sir.
Our standard contract has something in the language in the contract as well. Says that change orders are discouraged and subject to approval by district manager.
Yes, in just your very latest contracts
Right.
that came up since this was initially brought up.
Sure.
But that language is in there now.
And-
Okay, couple things, just to say that these are done. One, the letter revoking the privileges to the Harmony Dog Parks that was discussed in detail last month. That's been sent. I don't think any demand for a hearing was provided. The next is the letter sent to the gentleman for trimming beyond his property line on that oak tree. That letter has been sent as well. If there's no questions on those, I'll just keep rolling. Okay, the next is the pool contract that was approved last month. There was a good bit of negotiation back and forth. I know the manager worked with the chair. We got that, I believe, in the shape it needs to be in. It's under the not to exceed amount of 100,000, barely. And now we'll just send that to the contractor and get it approved. There's really no action for the board to do at
Okay,
this time.
I think this is the best place to address the pool pump issue. So we went through, we got the contracts hammered out. Really, I want to compliment Julie. She's here today or tonight. did an excellent job working with the pool contractors. And the total for all the work, including the lights and things, is 92,349. There was one issue that one of the proposals brought to our attention and we worked through, and that is that our pool pump in the swim club actually has a metal housing. And that is causing, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, if I'm getting this wrong, an issue with rust and discoloration of our pool surface. That's why you're seeing that browning that's starting to take place. And so the recommendation is to go ahead and change that out. Since that was not in our original scope, then we would like to bring that to the board right now. Did we get another quote on that from?
Most pool filter housings are metal without a doubt. And most of them align with ceramic or some other type of material to prevent exactly the problem that you're talking about, because pool water is corrosive.
Mhm.
And if you just have untreated metal, yeah, it'll give off material and end up in the pool water. But that surface in that pool has been tinged from the day it went in, and as is the little kiddie pool. And the kiddie pool has a completely separate pump. The two waters are not shared. That browning of the surface happened due to the lousy quality control from the contractor who put it in. If there's rust in that water, it'll be easy. If there's iron in the water, that'll create rust. I doubt that we have iron, but we should test the water for iron before we go down this road. It's the iron in the metal that creates the rust. When you look at it, if there really is rust forming, it's not forming on the new patches that are in there. There's 15 of them, and it's not forming there. And if you look on the shelves, Sean acid washed those skimmer shelves last year, and they're still very bright white. So if you had rust in the water, those would have turned brown like the rest of the pool has turned brown. I don't think we have iron in the water. I don't think we have rust coming. And I know it's a good assumption, because when you look at that, the pump, the exterior of that pump housing is rusty, without a doubt. But it's a really easy way to find out if there is rust in the water. If that's rust, you buy an iron test strip from the pool supply or Amazon or whatever, just little strips, litmus paper, and it'll tell you if you got iron in the water. Before we spend $9,000 or more on a pump, we should ascertain. But I'm telling you that that water, that surface turned brown almost immediately when that pool contractor put that surface on. They did a lousy job with it, as we know.
Okay. So at this time, what we've got is we want to make sure that we have good quality water going into our new surface. So we need to go ahead and we can do some testing and evaluating on that pump. And then the question would be, do we want to go ahead today and say, have a motion to go ahead and replace that pump if it's found, if the water is found to be injecting
Iron into the
iron. Well, thank you. And then replace it. We could do a not to exceed. Or we're going to start, if everything goes well, it sounds like we've got a start date of what, November 29th? Okay, and they are going to, they estimate to take 3 to 4 weeks.
They said 20 business work. So 20 business days is what they're saying.
4 weeks.
Depending on when.
Okay, so that would still give us enough time to come back to our next December board meeting, which I think is the 16th, and approve a change out of the pump. The nice thing about the pump is they say it's a 1-day turnaround to get the pump, and then they can quickly install it. But if we do have an iron problem, we're going to want to get that done before we refill. The
I'm
pump.
not arguing that.
No, I understand that. And I don't want to replace the pump. Oh, by the way, the 92,349 also includes the kiddie pool. because there is
Madam
some
Chair?
contamination starting in that kiddie pool.
Yeah, the coloration has been,
Supervisor Ruby.
yes. Go
Can
ahead,
you hear me?
Mike.
You can hear me fine?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. I deal with water, chlorinated water every single day of my life. That's my profession. I have everything with me at this moment that I can actually go and test that water for anything that you want it tested for tomorrow. And that, you're right, Steve, that pump should be PE lined or lined with some other substance. But yeah, even if it's stainless, it doesn't matter. Chlorine would eat it to pieces.
Yeah.
So, but I can definitely test the pool water for whatever you want to test it for.
Well, it's my belief, Mike, and you know, you work with water all the time. It's my belief that iron in the water creates the rust situation. Would you agree with that?
Oh, most certainly, yes.
Okay, so,
But also you can get discoloration when with too much acid too. So
Sure.
I mean,
well,
you know, it goes back to before I even, you know, I'm familiar with what took place with that pool when it was resurfaced, but not all the details as far as acid washing and stuff. So too much acid will do it too, but yes, I agree.
well, that's a good point, because whoever was involved at the time remembers that they spread grout all over the coping. And their response to get rid of that grout was to literally spray muriatic acid on the coping and the grout, and all that washed right into the pool, right on that brand new surface. So you had brown grout and
that was-
acid washing onto the brand new surface. Killed it.
That is correct.
Okay,
Mike, so you can take care of this testing of the
I
water
can.
quickly?
I
okay.
can tomorrow.
So
Okay.
we'll have the water tested. We'll also have the pool pump evaluated. And then bring it back to the next meeting as to whether we need to go forward with a new pool pump or not.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Anybody else have any input on that? Okay, great. So we will be executing that contract probably tomorrow. And getting the pools resurfaced. We will not be doing them. We will be doing the swim club and the kiddie pool first, starting November 29th. And then the Ashley Park pool will begin February 2nd. 7th will be the date, because they've already booked a job in between the two. Any other questions on the pools? I will turn it back over. Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all, no problem. You are the chair. Towing contract. So we're gonna have to go out and find some other companies. This company that was selected had represented to us that it was in compliance with the statute. Due to a little due diligence, the area that was utilized for the towing facility was actually a townhome. And so I think that's probably a multitude of red flags. So we're going to find another towing company and come back next month on that. The tree trimming policy, I just got hot off the press, a document from the arborist. And so we can take that document and put it in a nice tidy policy if that's what the board wants to utilize. And with that, I think my report is concluded.
All right, the tree trimming, I think that was handed out to everybody at the meeting. It will, and yes, Supervisor Castle, it'll be emailed to you if everybody can review it and get comments back to our district manager. If you have any comments on that, then we can move forward in getting that formal policy and getting our tree trimming back underway and a whole project developed with that. Any questions on that? No other questions for our? Thank you. All right, the next order on the agenda, item on the agenda is our field manager's report.
Hello. Might need a new battery.
Mhm.
Uh-oh.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, members of the board.
Hi.
you received a weekly report from Infomark. Is there any comments on that? Let me know. There, so, go ahead.
In one of the reports, you mentioned something about having some more hydrilla show up than what the other ponds.
That-
Teresa,
correct.
your mic is off again.
Oh,
I've got it now.
okay.
Okay.
Audio is
I
difficult.
dropped it.
You have all kinds of problems with audio. It's amazing.
Oh, me and electronics don't mesh. But anyway, so is something being done about that, or what, where are we with that? Have we done the sampling, verified it's hydrilla and treated it yet, or?
Right, so when we saw the hydrilla, we need a kind of board direction to start over again with the treatment, which is, as you know, a pricey treatment. It's pretty much about $2,500 to treat it. Cherry Hill Pond is already been treated one time for hydrilla. That's why it might be handy to get the board direction on what we need, how to proceed with this if we want to do this again.
Same pond?
Same pond. Same
And
area.
when was it last treated?
It was 2 years ago, I would say.
Sounds about right.
2 years,
With
yeah.
the C-Pro stuff
Yeah,
there?
CPRO, yeah. That's 3 years.
Yeah, it's
actually.
a couple, 3 years.
3 years ago.
Mhm.
What was the one we approved earlier this year? What pond was that?
Yeah, that's
That-
my confusion.
Yeah,
That was
bet-
in
yeah,
Waterside.
was.
The Cherry Hill Pond is the big one in the back
Right.
along Buck Lake, the,
Well, behind Dark Sky.
yeah,
back
yeah,
corner.
yeah, along the
Actually,
conservation
we're,
area.
we're down there.
I'm sorry, you were saying that has hydrilla in it?
Hydrilla, yes.
Hydrilla, yes.
Again,
Mhm,
Yes, hydrilla, again.
Was there any warranty, or, I know that's tough because hydrilla is
No, there's no warranty.
nasty stuff. And have we taken a sample and gotten it positively identified?
Well, no, but Brad saw that it was exactly the same hydrilla as hydrilla. Yeah, I can
And
get
just,
that
just
one.
for reference for the board,
Mhm.
Yes.
I actually treated that several years
Mhm.
prior, myself for hydrilla.
Yep, that was Mike.
Prior
There
to
was-
This would be the third occurrence.
We discussed it at that point. There was the Cadillac treatment, which was like a double whammy. And then there was the standard treatment, which I think is what we chose, which was about half the money. So it was effective, but I
Well,
guess it really doesn't
obviously
matter.
not.
Well, hydrilla, once you got it for the most part. But I guess the CPRO worked. Is 2 or 3 years enough?
Well, the question is, are we actually getting rid of it with the CPRO, or is it just knocking it back to where we're not seeing it? And then it's
It's
coming
knocking it back the way
back?
you're not seeing it.
Is it
Yeah,
time
that's,
on that pond to bring in the professionals?
Brett? Is hydrilla like a tuber where you kill what you can see growing, but the seed effectively stays in the bottom until it's sprung up again? Is that how hydrilla works?
Yeah, so the seeds are viable, obviously, when the plant.
We're gonna
Mike,
need
Yeah,
to,
sorry.
John, Mike.
So the seeds are viable. So even though you treat the active plant, if it had already dispersed its seeds and they are in the lake bed, they can come back. You're targeting the active plant just like you do with glyphosate, targeting, a weed in your bed. The other thing that we have to remember too is, like, ducks are in a pond that has hydrilla and they fly into a new pond, they can reintroduce
Mhm.
this aquatic weed back into these ponds. So
And-
a 3-year control is pretty solid. I do have another district that they use CPRO to a much higher cost on a very large pond, and it was done 3 years ago, and it is back again. So I think this is just a normal reoccurring unfortunate issue that we have in this pond.
All right. That
Yeah.
pond is also at the end of the chain. We have several others that
Correct.
drain into that
Mhm.
or into Buck Lake by way of that pond. So
Are any of the golf course ponds tied into that? Do we know?
No.
No,
Okay,
I don't think so.
asking out of
no,
curiosity.
that's
If they treat-
all,
if they
all
treat
us.
Right, well, if they treat we treat those ponds as well. So, okay.
Thank you.
All
Um, what do you do? Treat it with CPRO again or ignore it? I mean,
Well, I-
CPRO.
I don't think ignoring this is a good idea.
Well, I know, but
I think we treat it with CPRO again. We had a, good longevity. As Brett expressed, this is something we're just going to have to address on a continual basis because it doesn't go away completely. Seeds germinate. Wildlife carries the hydrilla from one spot to another. So I would suggest we just treat it with the CPRO again.
Brett, you're comfortable with our aquatics guys doing the CPRO treatment?
Well, if I can, yeah, it usually goes under guidance of CPRO itself. The
Right.
representative is there. They're going to help us. They
Right.
help us with the application from the beginning till end. That's what they did with
Yes.
Waterside too.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Okay,
it was about 2,500, yes.
Are we authorizing that amount at this point?
Yeah, do we need to vote on this or can we just,
You have to note
can we
prices.
just read it?
Sorry, prices have gone way up. Roundup has tripled almost. Just giving the board the heads up. That's probably also with this product. So if you give a not to exceed, I would go a little higher if I may advise.
okay, since it sounds like it will be over $2,500, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Madam Chair, there is just a quick hydrilla Google. CPRO also has a new product out called Procilla Core that we need to check with them on pricing. That does discuss eliminating hydrilla. So again, eradication of weeds is never discussed
Well,
much,
yes, as
but
old
we need to-
world climbing
let's
fern, we
check with
know.
CPRO on various products that they
Sounds
offer.
like, we're probably bring this back next month when we know where we're gonna go.
Yeah.
And we have numbers rather than
Sure.
give you a not to exceed and you're over by $2, right?
If it were just the one, yeah, but if we've got a potential choice, then yeah, let's
Sure.
go formal.
All right. So we will set that on next month's agenda and look forward to getting some quotes and further information back. Oh,
That's
sorry.
twice. Oh, you're
Teresa, you said before
I know.
electronics and you don't match.
I don't.
This is, I mean, you have more problems with electronics. It's unbelievable.
Bailing out on me. Okay, so let's see. All right, any other questions concerning the weekly updates that we've been receiving?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, every once in a while you do a landscape zip around that shows up in those reports.
Audit.
Is that on a regular basis? Is that a
Yes.
scheduled?
Yeah, it's scheduled the first Monday of the month.
Once it's done and you make the report and we see it, what happens after that?
Should be followed up on, the team, whoever is doing it, should be going and checking those things from the report and making sure they're complete and checking them off.
That means him. And
And I don't know. if
you know the question that's coming,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I know it. I know it. Here's Brett.
So the way it should work is Gerhard does ride around with the representative Cervello. Typically that's Pete.
Right.
The items are discussed and noted in the report. We ask and we send these reports off to the vendors. We give them 5 business days to respond, not necessarily with everything being completed, but with an action item or a plan for completion. Unfortunately, we're not getting those responses from landscaping.
That was the answer I was looking for.
So
And we haven't been.
And we haven't been since we rolled out the new photo site audit that you all have been seeing in your agendas. This has been discussed with Cervello, to no avail.
So you need some board help here with,
It wouldn't be a bad idea to send them a little nudge. I mean, I can reach out to them again. Again, there's a plethora of options. You can send them a 30-day right to correct. We we've discussed other items already in a workshop that, you know, we could pursue if we wanted to. But again, that's all up to the board on direction on where you want to go.
That's kind of where I was going with that. Gerhard can only check up on hoops that are being done and
Right.
we're not getting any responses. So
So are we not getting verbal or written responses? Are we seeing actual progress on? I mean, are they just not talking to us about them, but are getting them done, or they're just not getting them done at all? What?
So some of the items are reoccurring items that are actually already scheduled in their work schedule. So like the berms, they said, well, we already scheduled it, but we don't really know when they do that. So whenever I notify it, like, hey, the weeds in the berms need to be done here on East Five Oaks, when they say they schedule it, but obviously I cannot influence their schedule on when they are doing it. However, if it reoccurs in another audit the month later with the same berm issues, then, you know, I cannot force them to arrange their schedule and say, look, you need to do these weeds right now, or you need to do, that is kind of, they're a vendor on its
Okay,
own.
but my question is if something shows up in the audit as a real problem, they may not send you an email or give you a call back saying this is when we're going to deal with it. But do they deal with it in a reasonable time is what I'm. It's a mixture.
Yeah.
So we're not getting a total snub, but not everything's getting done.
I'll give you a real world. I typically ride around on my bicycle all the time and I take pictures and I send them to him. And then he goes and re-verifies the picture and puts it in the report and whatnot. And then I ride around again and again and again and again. And some of the stuff I sent in July is still untouched. It's probably 50-50 in my experience of stuff I've sent. How many times did I send you pictures? 4 or 5 times in the last 2 or 3 months, right? Good number of pictures and it's pretty easy to pick it out. And half of it is still undone. And that's why I asked the question. It makes it to the audit. I see it. And we all get a nice picture that says, here's your report. Here's all the bad pictures and everything. And then it just kind of goes from here.
Okay, now my next question is, have all the board members gotten their comments and concerns about our landscaping scope of work for our next proposal out yet? Okay, I would ask you, if you're not going to provide any, just send an email saying, I don't have any comments. That way we can finalize that. That way we can let Cervello know that we're ready to go out at the drop of a hat. That may or may not have any effect on them, but we do have an out clause in our contract. We can give them I think it's 60 days notice.
Yes.
Okay, we can give them notice and then start the process for getting a new landscape contractor. And I'm not bashful to do that. But we have to have our ducks in a row so we don't end up in this situation in the future.
And to add to that, you can go out to RFP prior to giving any notice.
Sure.
So that way you can see proposals come in, then you can make a decision and then issue notice if that's the direction you want to take. But getting that information back from you all would be extremely helpful. And there has been some supervisors that have responded.
Okay, so that's what I would like to, let's get that finalized. So again, for all the supervisors, if if you don't have time or don't want to, or don't have the expertise to make any comments, or just don't have any comments, please just let them know. And we are going to go ahead and finalize that scope of work. We hope to have it finalized by the next meeting would be good.
If that's what you would like, yes.
Okay. So by the next meeting, we should have the scope finalized. So get your comments in if you want them considered. And that way we will be prepared to make a decision on whether to go on out, put an RFP out, or not.
I think they're at the point where they're just sliding along because they know they're in their last year. And going back to the beginning of their contract, we put some pressure on them. And they gave us the 30-day notice and said, see ya. And we kind of unwound that. So
Well, my understanding from the contract is that, as I recall, legal counsel are here. I think they don't have one. I think it's just on our side, but we'll wait and
So
see.
just to be clear, do you want the RFP scope in the agenda for December for board review or no?
Yes, let's have it for board approval.
So any comments we want to
Right.
have into that, need to.
So
have
if
minutes.
you want your comments addressed in that, get them in.
Prior.
Right.
Yeah.
And if,
Wednesday
if-
afternoon, no.
if you would like a deadline date for that.
I'll send everybody an email with the deadline.
Okay, great. All right.
All right, so I have a couple of items. The fence quotes, I'm sorry, the last one, Osceola fence came in really late. I really had to beg them to get the quote, but they did. And by advisement, I sent it over to the board. I hope everybody received it. That makes that we have a complete total of 3 quotes for the board to look at. If there's any questions, please let me know. I did verify with all the contractors that all the poles go in concrete. 2 of them didn't put that on that quote, but it's such a normal, they said it's such a normal practice that they didn't put it on. However, Chapco did, which is good. So that we did start on the quadrant 1 of the sidewalk maintenance. Sidewalk maintenance on East 5 Oak is quadrant 1. It starts at the pool and it goes all the way back to East 5 Oaks. What we did is we start grinding down this quadrant. The replacement panels have been sent to Infomark for a proposal. So that will be a proposal for concrete replacement. Also, pressure washing has started on quadrant 1. Most of it we have done. However, pressure washer broke down again, so we have to fix it. And then we can continue. A couple of items came in between, like the basketball court, which we started, but has a clean line now on the outside. And the boardwalks we wanted to have done because they were a slip hazard. So that is the sidewalks on quadrant 1. Okay. Then I found a dip in the town square. The pavers have been dipped. There was a tree prior to. What I think is happening is that there were probably deep-rooted roots and that they're deteriorating, and it creates air or a dip. And so I'm working on quotes for that also.
Okay, and we're sure there was a tree there and that we don't
Yeah, I'm pretty
have
sure because
anything else subsurface that might be causing that.
no, there was a tree there because I
Okay.
had it taken away and
All right, and it was right
yeah.
adjacent.
Mhm.
There's no washout, like if it was a main line for
Mhm.
irrigation, you don't see any rising sand.
Right, right.
It is a compression. Looks like they've ground the stump.
Right.
Is that-
No, my other question was a stormwater pipe somewhere. We see those. And they don't show any wash or anything. So,
We could check.
but
I
yeah,
have-
that we could look at the plan, as-built plans for the drainage and see if there's anything adjacent. Supervisor Castle?
Yeah, I had a question about the fencing proposals. So I didn't know where how these proposals came to be requested. And I'm assuming this is for the fencing out on by 192.
Yes.
But it's not clear to me, like,
You're back.
who requested this and why and where?
Okay, we're gonna have Mr. Perez, if you'll stand right here and kind of face the camera.
Well, she doesn't
What
want to
she's,
block the camera.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Supervisor Castle, it was one of those a proactive approach on Gerhard's end and our end to, we're looking at the fence. It needs to be cleaned. But it's pretty battered. There's a lot of Band-Aids on it is the best way to put it. It's a very old fence. So, I spoke with Gerhard and we decided that we needed to move forward with getting proposals to present to the board if they wanted to consider this as an action for replacement. Just again, no request from supervisors, solely just a proactive proposal that was requested.
And I think there were pictures in the agenda 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, it's been ongoing.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
talked about it several times.
Yeah, and that was another thing with the reserve study that I didn't see that the replacement of that fence was imminent in the reserve study, which was confusing.
Yes, that's one of the things, Supervisor Castle, that I asked the reserve folks. You quoted us a lifespan of this fence, yet we're looking at, I think it was replacing it 10 years early because it is literally crumbling. So I asked them to, maybe rethink their position on the lifespan of that vinyl fencing.
What did they have it at?
I don't recall. There was
Oh.
a whole list of things I
okay.
gave them. So,
Oh.
but
It's been there for 20 years.
it's been here for almost 20 years. There are two questions now that we're on the fence, and maybe we can deal with the fence now. One of the questions is, we don't own the entire frontage and fence. So the question is, are we going to, is there a possibility of working and doing a cooperative with the other owners? Which could be difficult, or do we want to go in and renew and replace now and set the standard? And hopefully the other owners will follow suit. So thoughts about those two issues?
Well, you have two. One just changed hands and the other is the golf course.
Well, we actually have three.
Three.
Yes, we have Compass Trading. We still have some for Harmony Retail. We have the new owners that are getting ready to do a development. Then we have the golf course, and then ourselves.
Well,
So
Harmony
5.
Retail just changed, I believe. And that probably took Compass Trading along with it, though that may not have been reflected in the property. That just happened in the last 10
But
days.
did that, wasn't that just west of the entry road and not east of the entry road?
I don't know what all transferred.
I
I presumed.
understand it was not the stuff east of the entry road.
I thought that Mr. Fusilier and his entity sold everything that he owned, but I don't know that for sure. That's rumor on the street.
Well,
So
I
whatever you
will
have.
check into it,
Yeah.
but
Harmony
we-
Retail is still the owner from the property appraiser's office as of right now. So
Right.
that's
Hasn't been, maybe it hasn't been. How do you, somebody got to find all these owners and tell them what you're doing and ask, right?
yeah,
I'll just say that it's a lovely idea to be an example, but based on our experience with the recent developers, being a good example does not mean that they will follow suit.
Right.
So at this point, until we know something firm, do we want to just keep Band-Aiding it? Are we at a position where we can replace single panels? Luckily, the fence is strictly aesthetics. And it's not a safety issue. It's nothing like that. We're not worried about somebody falling through it or, tripping over it or anything because it's out there in the frontage. So can we get pieces to replace the parts that are so majorly deteriorated and hold it together for a while? Or do we want to jump in?
Well, here's something to consider. We're going to put up 3,300 linear feet of nice shiny white fence. 2 years from now, it's going to be dirty and green and other colors. So we're going to go out there, we're going to hit it with the pressure washer, and that nice shine is going to disappear. then we're gonna be pressure washing it every year. And you have this degradation of it every time you clean it. Right down the street, those folks put in a black fence. It doesn't matter how it gets dirty.
But
Solves
it's
the whole
ugly.
problem of getting it dirty. Oh, I know everybody's shaking their head. No, we like the white fence. But the white fences look terrible once they get old.
I think this has been cleaned so much that
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
any other stuff is gonna start crumbling.
I understand that. It's done. It was that recycled plastic when they put it up, the green stuff, and I get it. But the fact of the matter is, when you put white vinyl outside, it turns dirty really quickly. And the more often you pressure wash it, the shorter the cycles in between, because it gets all rough and dry and the mold sticks on it, and here you go.
Okay,
So,
the other question I had was, when I was looking at the sites for the pool furniture, and that pool furniture, I swear to heavens, but for the manufacturer's defect, that stuff's lasted. When was it originally purchased?
well, some was replaced, but some of it is probably original because we moved it around.
Uh-huh.
But we did a major refurb there 5 years ago, 7 years ago. We
Well-
spent about $50,000.
There was an original amount that was purchased in the beginning of Harmony, and then later on, there was purchased more lounge chairs for $40,000
Right.
at that time.
When
and
was
it
that?
5
I-
years, 5 to 7 years at
No,
most.
it's longer. It's longer. It was before my time. So it's going to be
Okay,
at least
so it's
10
at
years
least 7
ago.
years,
Yeah.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
that stuff, I'm telling you,
It's like brand new, except where it cracks.
it's beautiful. once
Except
it
where it
gets washed.
cracks.
They have fencing that they make out of the same stuff. And but for the position we're in right now with our economy, I would say go there, but that's not available and the cost has like double or tripled. So my question is, if we can hold off for another 6 months by patching here and there and using baling wire and keeping it together, might we get to a better place in the economy to look at some much longer term permanent fix? Because that stuff seems to me, being out in the sun, being heavy, wear and tear, it'll probably last us 50 years if we.
I think the bigger difference is the way that the pool furniture gets maintained and cleaned, where Sean goes in there and just sprays it with bleach, rinses it off, and you're done. That's not really super aggressive on the plastic. When that plastic gets whacked by the hot water at 2,500 PSI, it opens up those pores. And that's your difference in lifespan, I think. And it's impractical to go out to 192 with a spray gun with bleach. You're going to kill all the foliage, right? And just the trying to do it. So I think that's the major difference. And I agree that the pool furniture, the material itself is
Well, it's
bulletproof.
not hollow, it's solid.
Right.
And it's very different.
And it maintains that shine. That's the
Right.
big difference. When the shine of the white plastic goes away is when it goes downhill quickly.
Okay, so,
If at some point, the fence, it's us. I mean, it defines Harmony. Everybody knows where the white fence is. It's been there for a long time. It's looking pretty dingy when you look at it carefully. Of course, the median in the middle of the road is unmaintained too, and that looks pretty dingy as well, but that's a separate story. The only thing I don't like is us putting up some patchwork fencing and having our neighbors with their fence connecting to ours still looks dingy, right? If we could get an agreement from our neighbors that own that same kind of white fence, I'd say go now. But if we're not going to get that agreement, I don't want to spend this kind of money, and because everybody's going to think the CDD didn't replace all of their fence.
Yeah.
They put this patchwork in the middle. and
well,
look at the
why
mess they're
don't,
left
why
with.
don't we do this? Why don't we let district management reach out to the other owners and talk to them about it? And then we could look at doing some cooperative agreement. And then we will come back and reconsider our options. Again, I don't think this is the time unless we have something that's structural an issue to be sinking money into vinyl or recycled because the prices are just out of.
I'm in agreement.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just one quick note. It's been a while since I researched it, but I believe the law is if the land buys, the fence is already there when they buy it, they then have an obligation to help repair and maintain the fence.
Can't hear you.
Oh. We're gonna get a audience mic.
So I believe the law is if a adjoining landowner buys their property when the fence is already in existence, it's a boundary fence, they have an obligation to help repair and maintain the fence.
You said a key word there, Tim. Boundary fence. This is not really a boundary fence.
Yeah.
It's not a boundary for us. It's a boundary between 192 and the private property, but we're not arguing that point, but maybe we'll figure that out.
Between public and private? It's a boundary of the CDD? I think it's a boundary.
No, it's not on, it's like, I've got on the screen here. It's like typically it's in the middle actually of the tract, but it's just for, it's the aesthetic fence along 192. It's not on the actual.
The areas we're talking about, it would be private on both sides of the fence. Developer.
Yeah.
There's probably zero duty of the city to do that. If you didn't construct it, then it's not on your boundary.
That's true, but we
We're
like the
talking about
nice
the
white
aesthetics.
fence, the aesthetics of it. I think we're good.
Yeah, we'll have the conversation and see where it goes.
Right. All right. That's it.
That's all
You
I have.
had a vandalism report here.
Oh, yes, vandalism. So there, in September, October, there's been some vandalism in Ashley, mostly in Ashley Park. We worked together. I worked together with Ryan Quinn, who is a local sheriff, who also lives in Harmony and is very involved in keeping Harmony safe. So we worked together with him, sent him all the video material. He did some investigation. A resource officer at school recognized one of the persons, got in touch with the persons. He gave up the other names. The other persons were contacted by the sheriff's department, and they were all outside of Harmony. Only one person was inside Harmony. We got in contact with the family. The grandfather owned the situation, made him come to my office and apologize. So he did apologize to the CDD about having his elbow going through the window of Ashley Park. Those costs were $160. He wrote me a check right away for $160, and that was that. Now, however, there's another damage of the window that we cannot define. There's been some graffiti on Ashley Park that we don't know who that was. However, the persons that were causing the problems have not been seen at the Ashley Park pool anymore. And that's pretty much the goal. That was the goal. We retrieved half of the damage. The rest of the damage we could fix in-house. However, we worked together very well with the sheriff's department and got the situation handled as far as we could.
Okay.
That glass got broken twice?
Yes.
Same guy.
He
think,
says
maybe.
no, but it was a different, and we cannot
Yeah, I
trace
understand.
it back on the camera because the restroom doesn't have camera area. So, but at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will get with you later. I'd like to view that video because if they are the same individuals that we had a run in with at the other pool, then we need to look at that, but I'll get with you on that. I don't think you were on property when that one happened. So, but I do want to say one thing. If it comes down to questions of charging or not charging, please let us know because that's a decision we need to keep with the board. I am, there was a mistaken statement in one of the weekly reports. From my understanding, Infomark management did not authorize Gerhard to make those charging decisions. those are serious decisions that need to stay with this board.
So just for information, that no charges have been pressed. There's
Right.
No trespassing has.
But
been
again, yeah, if we need to do that, that needs to be a decision by the board.
Needs to be a decision by the board to get you hooked up with some electronics that don't fall all the time.
Really?
Because you're apparently not getting it done yourself.
But duly noted.
So
Thank you.
anyway,
Yep, yep, I got
but
it.
just be aware of that. Okay, is that the extent of your report at this
Anything
point?
about the key card proposal or?
Yeah, for the dog park?
Okay, oh yeah, sorry. So the key card proposal you have, I was trying to get somebody else on board, which is not calling me back. So unfortunately for that, however, what we have here is just single for the dog park. I did not do the new dog park because it does not have power. So it doesn't have a base point to start with for TEM. But they did.
I have a
do-
question.
Yes, Supervisor Castle.
This appears to be talking about one east entrance and one west entrance, and I am confused by the proposal. Can you please clarify what this includes?
Would you like, so the board has discussed to close two entrances to make this a cheaper option. Correct me if I'm wrong. So two.
Oh, that's
entry-
correct.
Yeah, so two entry boxes would be closed. So now you have two, a quote for two entry boxes
On the same dog park.
on the same dog park. However, the one for the small dog park and one for the bigger
Large
dog
dog
park,
park.
which is actually is adjacent to the play area.
Right.
So the one is at the play area. The one in the far back would be closed then, and the one on the Bracken Fern side would be closed then.
So for this cost, we would be locking two gates permanently and denying access.
That's correct.
I don't think that's going to fly. People aren't going to be happy.
That's what I mentioned last week, but last meeting, but others had a different opinion. Yeah, but without doing this at the third park, you know, we're sort of making it a magnet for people who wouldn't have a key card.
Let me ask our field manager a question here. So if we wanted to do the other two gates at these parks, it would roughly be this amount of money plus, because there'd have to be some trenching involved for a further distance, basically around the perimeter of the park with trenching, right?
Yeah, I think it was a $30,000
$30,000.
Yeah, so,
cost estimate.
well, that's what we thought. And if you double this plus a little bit, we're back at the original $30,000 estimate.
Correct.
Correct.
I just, you know, I don't think we should be in the business of taking things away from people that they have. And an entrance gate is rather important. It's like when trees fall down, you don't just cut the stump and cover it over, right? You put the tree back up because that's what was here before. Taking away a couple of gates for the purpose of saving money, and I understand we need to save money, but you know, again, it comes down to the moral dilemma we faced last month with this one-time deal with this dog. I'm sorry it happened, but the fact of the matter is, you're asking the community potentially to spend $30,000 to maybe not solve the problem, because another attack can happen on a dog. I mean, it's sad this happens. People get bit by dogs. You don't react in a huge manner and lock everybody up in a cage. So, and then we still have another dog park to think about with two more gates.
Okay, so
I don't know. It's tough.
am I hearing any inclination to go further with the key card lock on the gates? Or are we going to hope that the letter and the threat of trespass will suffice?
I like the letter and the threat of trespass.
I mean, we have, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, I mean, we have this, we have these formal quotes now, so going forward, if we do have either continued issues with, you know, previous subjects or additional issues, we can balance that against, well, we know it's going to be about 30 to do this one, maybe, 40, 45 to do the additional ones as well. We can have that conversation at the time, but as of right now, seems to be that we're,
Okay, so, all right, at this point, we will move on. We will keep this consideration. And I think one of the things that we may need to do, whether it's myself or the district manager, we need to have a sit down with the sheriff and talk about the issue of trespass and trespass notices, since it is in our rules. And we are not allowed to be law enforcement, so we do need law enforcement to work for us or assist us in our duties. So without, unless there's further discussion, we will leave that at that. Okay, anything else for the,
Yes. How many vehicles do you have down right now?
2,
Bobcat and Landmaster,
Landmaster, correct.
because of repair cost or some other problem?
We have discussed it to leave the Landmaster and the Bobcat without not repairing it, let's say that, because we're getting a new vehicle. I think we're still getting a new vehicle. Once that vehicle is there, then we would have full operational. We could manage it without a spare vehicle at that point. So the Bobcat repairs will be more than $1,000. The Landmaster has been troubled, as you know, for a while. We can absolutely bring it to the repair, but I'm guessing it will be more than $1,000 to get it all up and running again. The thing was, do we weigh in the cost of repair, or when we're going to sell it anyway? So the board obviously need to decide, hey, are we going to sell the Bobcat and the Landmaster, who is pretty much, the Bobcat is a draining cost picture right now.
10 years old.
Well, but the Landmaster has been troubled for a long time. We could keep that as a spare vehicle. However, the Bobcat and the Landmaster are both out of commission right now.
Sure.
Mhm.
So you're down one guy right now,
Correct.
one frontline vehicle, and your spare vehicle is down. So you're operating now with enough vehicles, but if you get another guy staffed up, you will be short one vehicle for that guy.
No, that's not correct. So we have the Viking, we have the Polaris, and we have the Mule, and we have the EV, electric vehicle. Yeah.
So you have,
we are good.
so you'd be good.
Right. So the Mule could turn into the spare
Fair,
vehicle.
right. That makes sense, because that's the second oldest one.
Right.
Right.
And that
Okay.
it's very reliable, more reliable now as the other two.
I understand. I'm just trying to get a handle on what your needs are, what the money costs are going to
Okay.
be, and where we
so
are.
we're good.
When would the board like, we've already started gathering proposals for the vehicle that the board budgeted for.
Mhm.
When would y'all like to see those on your agenda for review?
Well, those things are tough, right?
When's the pressing
Do we have an EV available somewhere?
Well, the question is, I don't want to jump in to buy now if there's not an immediate demand for the vehicle, because right now, the cost of everything is much more than it should be.
Yeah, and that's why we've just been getting proposals, but I don't want the board to think that we haven't been getting proposals. It's whenever you're ready to view them, we've been getting them.
Okay.
And we'll continue. But
Okay, just keep an eye on the pricing, and when it starts coming down to more reasonable, then we can talk about it. But my understanding is that everything's just kind of out of this world right
Well,
now.
the Polaris, we got a quote for, I believe it was 14 and change. And then the club car, right? The Pro Max? Yamaha, I'm sorry. The Yamaha UMAX. I believe you guys bought one last year for 11, around 11. The
11.4.
one I got a quote for was 11.9. So it's not
Okay, so it's not
drastically
that
out of
bad.
the
So it's a
range.
UMAX 2 EV.
Mhm.
Oh, that's,
From Kissimmee Motorsports.
in today's world, that's a bargain.
Okay,
So those are the two quotes that I've received. I did get a Polaris one. The Polaris was
A lot higher.
$3 grand higher. yeah.
Okay, the question is the work that that vehicle is going to be doing, will the UMAX be able to do it?
I will defer that to Gerhard because
Yes.
he's the one who uses it.
Yes, so the UMAX, Mr. Ruby has investigated that with purchase of the previous UMAX. Has a very good torque, it has a very good pull. It has even a hitch in the back. You can pull a trailer
Right,
with it.
all
yeah.
I need to
Mhm.
know
Yeah,
is it gonna
yes.
do what you need it to
Yes.
do? I don't want to buy
Here's,
something that,
here's the reason for pushing EV. Number one, it's quiet.
no,
but-
you don't have to mention that. I'm good with that. So, and we are running very short on time.
And
so
all the
let's-
specs of that before we bought it
Mhm.
matched up with the gasoline powered one. And by doing that, you save all the gasoline powered maintenance costs.
Yes, no, I'm totally on board.
That
with you.
UMAX has required $0.
But the
in
Polaris
repairs.
is an EV also.
Yes.
So are we in need of replacing that vehicle right now?
Your mule is 10 years old and it's only going to start costing money to repair. That's your problem.
Well, and we just spent something like 2,500 on the Polaris because of a transmission issue, which there's no reason that age of vehicle should have had that transmission problem. So we need to look at how we're driving the vehicles.
No, what happened there is your dealer took you for a ride on that. It needed a belt. That's what it needed, but
Well, then we need to be more careful. Okay, thank you.
So do we need this vehicle now at this time?
no,
No.
but you will.
Okay, so we will revisit it at a later date. We have the quotes, we have the possibilities, and we have the options.
Maybe put it in next month's package for review.
Sure, let's put it in next month's package. too. All right, a quick one, if you don't have anything else, this deals with field services, the conservation area monitoring. Austin Environmental, again, was a no-show on our conservation area monitoring. I had a call with the Water Management District. They are in agreement that 7 of the 8 transects we've been monitoring are not on CDD property and are not even representative of the issues that they want monitored. So they have given us the go-ahead to revise our conservation monitoring program and to reestablish one. They said even if we continued on for another year at the 8 transects, they would not be ending it at the end of 5 years. It would be ongoing because we have such a major problem with the old world climbing fern. I've asked David to reach out to his environmental folks. When I sent the notice to Austin Environmental, I first verified that they did not follow through on the contract. I told them to end any monitoring. I said we'd be more than glad to accept a proposal from them. But again, based on their past performance, that would be kind of iffy. But we'll see what they offer up.
The transect question is because our permit required us to, we had a blanket
We
permit and it got into private ownership and
We have no right to be on any of those lands, so please do not go on or invite anyone or ask anyone to go on those. They have, the Water Management District has an easement to access and go on and monitor those lands, but we do not, whether they're in our permit or not. So that is currently under water management review as to what they're going to do. The indication right now is they are going to enforce against those particular landowners since they have not been taking care of their conservation areas.
So if I understand correctly, what you're saying is 7/8 of the areas we've been trying to treat, we no longer have to treat because they are not owned by the CDD. And we are going to put together some new wetland monitoring plan and probably not with Austin Environmental. Did I get that right?
You're very close. The transects and their locations were not representative of the proportion. We own approximately half of the conservation area lands that are on this side of US 192 or within our boundaries. The other half are under private ownership. Luckily, we identified this early, and we have not been treating the private lands because of my concern that that would possibly get us into a trespass issue and using toxic chemicals on other people's properties. Never a good idea. So we have not been treating it. We've had enough of a problem on our own CDD owned lands to deal with. So we've been actively working on our owned lands. But what will help us out enormously if the water management district enforces against the private landowners who are holding on to those conservation areas, enforces against them and forces them to do the treatment, then those old world climbing fern spores will then not come onto our property. So that is the goal that we're headed for. And not having to pay for that treatment.
Okay, thank you.
We'll come back next month with a couple of proposals and to present to the board for a new monitoring plan and moving forward from here.
There's got to be a better way with this stuff. God.
It is. It's called aerial spraying. And we may have to look at going outside. One big option we need to look at is going outside, having a company come in, do a major blast. It's going to be expensive, but a major blast. So we get ahead of it and we get to the point where we can maintain it. The problem is it's growing faster than we can kill it.
I know in the distant past with when Greg Golgowski was here, they did some thinning of like, in particular, I'm thinking the South Shore of Buck Lake, but they did some.
Cleared it all up.
Yes.
Right.
They cleared the understory and left fertile ground for old world climbing fern to proliferate.
Okay. Was it because that was only half measure? Like that was a good thing to do, but then needed the additional treatment, or that?
No, we didn't have old world climbing fern before that was done. So it's a combination of two things that we've got a real problem with now. One is opening up the ground to let the spores take root.
Mhm.
The other is that we are seeing temperatures change. Old world climbing fern is migrating further and further more aggressively north in the state of Florida. Those two combined have given us the problem.
Right.
It's not one or the other, unfortunately.
Stuff is almost indestructible. You can blowtorch it and it comes back.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Yep.
Okay, so that's it. District manager's report.
Very quick, just a couple of things. The Harmony invoices we've talked about a few times. I'll send everybody the information again. All I was looking to do is see if there was a way to make getting the board their invoices and things and streamlined for you all.
Microphone, please.
Oh.
Okay. So I'll send something out to the board. I was just wanting to make getting your invoices and things a lot more efficient and streamlined for you. That's all. So I'll send that out to the board, just a couple of different options, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting. The other thing is, Gerhard, we have moved to an Infomark credit card, and any purchases that Gerhard makes on that card, or even myself, anybody who makes a purchase for a district on an Infomark credit card, there's a 15% markup on that. It's an administrative fee to process it. Therefore, I'm asking the board, and we're not charging that, by the way. I've let Chris know that this board is not open to that. We're not charging it. However, the board, what I'm asking is, do you want to go back to having a CDD card, Harmony credit card, where there's no markup, there's no admin fee, there's no anything? Or I can go back and try and, let Chris know, no, you want to keep the Infomark card, but we do not want to pay a 15% admin fee for that. So those are the two options. As of right now, Gerhard is fine. He's making the purchases as he needs to, but there is no markup. But we need to determine, and I need to let Chris know we need to go one way or the other. Next thing is the garden club. This will be on your next agenda, and I can put the credit card on the next agenda as well. That way it's on here for everyone. The garden club has requested a Harmony CDD credit card as well for $500 to make their purchases as they need them to do the things for the garden club. As I explained to the garden club, I don't have that authority. That would have to come before the board. So that will be on your December agenda as well. Reserve study workshop. It's very important, I think, with all the questions and concerns and all of that, with the initial reserve study, that we set up a reserve study workshop. So if anyone has any dates or anything like that, I'll be happy to set that up.
To be clear, you're talking about credit cards. We've never had a credit card. We've always had debit cards.
Well, but you can use it as debit or credits. Yeah, same thing.
Right.
So you had a Harmony CDD is what your staff used, your staff meaning Gerhard, used that. Well, we went away from that and went to an Infomark. He's got a corporate card per se, but everything he uses it for obviously is just for Harmony. So it gets billed back to the district, but typically it would be a 15% markup.
Which happened last month on the permits.
Correct. Well, that was because Natasha,
I understand.
another employee, when we first did it, they automatically did a 15% markup. I have gotten that credited back. I think it was $180 for the permits that were first paid when we took over the contract in June. That has been credited back. You're not going to get charged the 15%, but you need to determine. I can go back to Chris. Nope, want to keep the Infomark card, but do not want to pay that 15% admin fee, or go back to a Harmony CDD card as you had before. Okay. We can put that on the December agenda. I don't think y'all need to get into a long discussion about it now. Also, the garden club credit card, I'll put under my report next month as well. So the only other thing is, do you have a date that you guys would like to schedule a workshop?
Pick one and send it up.
Time to think about it, and we can come back and talk about it at the December meeting. People can shoot me dates. I can shoot out dates, however the board would like me to do that.
Well,
We could
next
do
week
a
is
doodle
out.
poll. We could do a
sorry?
doodle poll. Sorry, I was saying we could do a doodle poll for dates. Are you familiar with the doodle polls?
Do a poll, email poll.
Oh.
Pick some.
Is it
You pick.
Doodle, DOODLE. If you go to Doodle, I believe it's doodle.com. You can set up a poll where everybody gets a link, and then they can go to the poll and they can select from certain dates that they
Oh,
may or may
yeah,
not. know.
I can't do that. I can't poll the board.
No.
I don't know
Date,
if
it's
we
not-
can
I'm
get the
here.
facility for,
I think
I would,
they're open.
I could reach out if that's an option the board wants to take. I can definitely, myself or Julie, reach out to Deb and ask if it is available. We can do that or do it on a whole nother date. Again, up to the board. I don't think it's anything you need to get down in the weeds about tonight, but I probably want to do it sooner than later so you can get your reserve study wrapped up.
We, just to be clear, we can do those telephonically, or do we need to have a meeting space with quorum to do even a
No,
workshop?
you can
Right.
do them Zoom, you can do in person, we can do telephone. It's
Right.
the board's
Yeah,
preference.
the only thought with trying to do it before the meeting, or do we think an hour would be enough? I mean, we've
Yeah.
typically gone to full length when we,
do
we get into it. yeah.
How about, I hate throwing something at 2 weeks from tonight, do you think that the reserve study folks will be ready for it then? It's better before they do the final, right?
Correct. And that's the point, is to get
Okay.
them, all of y'all's input, answer any questions you guys may
You're talking
have.
December the 2nd?
That's Harmony Nature and Animal Committee, which Dan and I are both on, meets that night.
December the 9th?
I cannot do the 9th. I have a prior engagement. Not that I need to be here for it either. If we're going to record it and all of those things, I don't have to be here.
We've done them Wednesdays in the past as well. If it's,
Okay.
Okay,
December the
The
1st.
8th would work for me. I'm not available. I don't think I'm available the 1st. But 8th would work.
December 8th.
December
Number
8th.
eight.
I think I'm okay.
That's a Wednesday,
Wednesday.
so probably, yeah, I don't think I have anything.
Okay. So tentatively, we'll schedule it for December 8th unless I hear otherwise from any of the members.
Time?
We're going to do it via Zoom or?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it via Zoom unless anybody says otherwise.
What time would you like that?
6 o'clock.
We're gonna do it, schedule it from 6 to 8 and hope we finish early.
Okay. So December 8th, 6 PM to 8 PM via Zoom.
Yes.
I will confirm with the reserve study first, and make sure he's available that date. And then if everybody can get over their questions, concerns, comments to him way prior to that, actually, like in the next week. So he can kind of put everything together and be ready to go. So it's a productive meeting.
Should we roll those questions through you so you can
Sure.
avoid the duplicates?
Sure, that's fine. However you'd like to do it.
Rather than have the guy get 5 emails all with the same question, right?
Okay, so
All right,
that's it.
we move on to the consent agenda.
One question for the district manager while she's still on.
Sure.
We've talked several times about a true up. Where do we stand with that?
Doesn't need to be done yet. Elizabeth's monitoring it. So everything that I have sent you still is where it is today. At the minute the minute that it needs to happen, I'll update everyone. And Elizabeth checks in with me pretty much every other day.
The key that we're watching here is that A2 platting.
Correct. Whichever's platted first, A or M, that's
Right.
what's going to trigger it. And then once it's triggered, then we move forward.
Put it right on the chair.
Okay.
Okay, we currently have the consent agenda up for approval. It includes the monthly minutes, the financial statements for October 2021, and the approval of registered 259
Yes.
invoices. Okay, I have a couple of changes to the minutes that I noted that I wanted to be sure of on page 40 of the minutes, which is page 132 in the agenda. There is an action box. It says on motion by, it doesn't list a name. That should be Supervisor Castle. And her motion is made on line 1214. Seconded by Supervisor Scarborough. And that's on line 1219. So that
Good catch.
is, pardon?
Good catch.
So that is one. Another one is on page 57 of the minutes. It's again a motion box, an action box. The second on that one should be Supervisor Scarborough. His second is on line 1779. He seconded it for discussion purposes and did not withdraw it, so that would have been the second. There's a third one that we need to rectify. And on this one, I need to apologize to the entire board and ask that we ratify, just to be sure, this action item. It's on page 44 of the minutes, which is page 136 of the agenda. The action was on the Harmony Cove drainage easement and amendment. We had a unanimous vote on this, but we lacked a motion and a second. Unfortunately, there was an indication that we might have had a motion and a second, and I called the question and we did not. So at this point in time, I would ask the forgiveness of the board and ask that we do a formal motion. And
Wait a minute, we
second.
all voted aye without a motion and a second?
Yes, we sure did.
I think everybody was talking over everyone. I
Yes.
remember it. I re-listened to it in the audio. Everybody was
It was a
talking
mess.
over everyone. And the next thing you know, I think it was done with a motion and a second, but it just didn't get picked up.
And it
Right.
may not have been, but
Yeah.
it, Yeah, in an
Is what-
abundance of caution, if the board will indulge me, I'll make the motion to approve the Harmony Cove or to ratify the vote that we took on the Harmony Cove drainage easement and 10th Amendment. Do I hear a
I'll
second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, because it says we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, but they didn't catch
Supervisor-
the motion in the second to
Oh.
print it.
Doesn't say who, because Supervisor Berube says on 1413, 1414, we already got a motion and a second. Supervisor Kramer confirms on line 1416, but
Now, that's your recording, the Zoom recording. Did we, I guess you'd need to, that was done on the machine here, but we could maybe go through that if there's still question, but we're dragging things out.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
we
so
just
anyway,
ratified it.
In the future. Yeah.
Do I hear any objections?
No,
Hearing none, it passes. We have reaffirmed that motion.
that must have been one of those audio electronic difficulties from you. Had to be.
We'll do as amended with these revisions.
Yes. Okay. All right. So as moved, I would look for a motion to approve the consent.
I have a
agenda.
question for the district
Okay.
manager, something we talked about. The Savello irrigation invoice rose from 2,200 a month to 2,233 this month. That's one and a half.
That is,
I know what it is. It's 1.5% over, but I went back and looked at our motion 2
no.
months ago when we renewed the contract. And we renewed the contract, but we didn't provide for a price increase.
it was in, it was a part of the renewal of the overall contract. The overall contract normally would renew at I think it was a 3%. They agreed to only do a
1.5, right? I
1.5,
understand.
and that's the 1.5 that you see.
Okay, I just wasn't clear that we had authorized a 1.5% increase on that contract. I know we did for the overall, and I know that we handle the irrigation one separately, so
But no, as it became, as it
we
got
rolled it in.
folded into it.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions on the consent agenda?
I would just say that for Mark, when we had some issues with the approved minutes from, I think this would be back September, being sent. But yeah, it was like we were sent like it was a scan or something. I had to go through and reprocess it to make it searchable and everything. I don't know what the issue was, but we had.
It should be a PDF. Just as
Well, it was a PDF, but it was still a PDF that it was clearly a
Yes.
scan. You could, it was grainy. And I asked Christy for the original. It came up like it was an earlier version. It had, it was the pre. Yeah, so just a little more attention there, so we have something good that we can put out for our final. All right, thank
Otherwise,
you.
Mr. Farnsworth's going to get all over you.
You know what?
Okay.
I do
I
have a
have a
question.
motion to approve the
Uh-oh.
consent
I
agenda.
do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed in the financials, we were over in sidewalk maintenance by $7,000 already, and we're just into the first month of the year. I just would like an explanation on that, please.
Oh, do you have the explanation?
Delayed billing.
Because, no. I think what happened was that the sidewalk for the crosswalk, am I right on this? And the dog park, concrete, and everything, all that concrete action that Infomark did for us so wonderfully, got lumped into sidewalks instead of put into the right category, and that will get corrected. And we're having a head shake. We have got it made.
Yes, I'm having a few things reclassed that actually went into the wrong buckets.
All right, thank you.
I apologize for that.
Second, do we have a second on the motion to approve? the
Oh,
consent
but would
agenda?
you like to be that second?
I am. I will
Thank
be.
you. All
Done it.
right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, you're
He
not
keeps coming in
opposed.
2
though.
seconds
Mike,
I
yeah.
heard enough.
A little bit of a delay there. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to old business. We're gonna finish this up pretty quickly. Garden Road update, we're still waiting on that. He gave it to us in the engineer's report. Towboat repair proposal. Brett? Sorry.
The audio and the visual now is going bad. Come on, Chairwoman.
Okay,
Yeah, so the towboat was delivered to Jim's Fiberglass. He did get his assessment on it and provided us a quote for repair, based off of what we found. We did remove, his initial quote was $7,000 for repair. And we went back to him and removed some hatches on the gunnels to eliminate some costs, and he came back to $6,500 as a final price to get that boat repaired. He is waiting for a decision if there's gonna be a change. He did text me tonight. I let him know that we would let him know as soon as possible. I do still feel that this is probably the best option to continue with this repair. I know he mentioned that there could be some carpentry work, or if we knew a carpenter. I think if we continue to delay the process any longer, we're gonna be probably looking at buying a new boat versus getting this one repaired. That's just my opinion.
yeah, the problem is that the materials for the repairs are going up steadily. And unfortunately, Jim's Fiberglass, I think he had to procure insurance in order to meet our requirements.
Yeah.
So that bumped the quote up also a bit. We
What
have
was our not to exceed on this?
4,000.
4,000.
Hmm.
Was for us to go out and take a look and see what was out there. The problem is that it's very difficult to find anything, any services at all dealing with boats right now. It's just nearly impossible. I know Brett and Gerhardt, myself, I don't know if we had other people, were scouring, trying to locate. Unfortunately, boat repair people are not something you just go out and get. They're kind of they work in the back of the industrial complex, and you got to know somebody to even get to them. So Jim's Fiberglass does, he indicated, and I think he verified that he works with the Florida Game and Fish and a couple of other entities. So that's what we have right now.
He also mentioned too, Teresa, that he's not passing the entire cost of the COI along to us.
Right.
Because he does feel that he should have it. The crazy thing is the state doesn't even ask for.
I know. isn't that
FWC
nuts?
and the local authorities down there that they work on the Donzies and stuff that go out, they just ask for a quote and they say, get it done.
Because 99% of the time, they assume that he has it.
Correct.
You would assume.
So
So we
anyway,
need a motion to approve this new
I
6,500
do,
price.
yes.
I'll move.
Okay, I have a motion to approve 6,500 for a complete renovation of the interior of our towboat, including the transom. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Sounds like some heartburn over there, Steve.
Hearing none.
Giant heartburn.
Hearing none, I'll call the
Well,
question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye. That's an aye. Not
That's
an A, that's an aye.
That's an aye. Okay.
Mike?
Supervisor Scarborough, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay.
said
Are you in
yes.
fa- Okay, we, hearing no opposition, approved unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and we will get on that.
You can skip item C.
We are going to skip item C and item 7A. We will deal with that next month.
I have a supervisor's request to adjourn.
Well, really
Oh, no,
briefly,
Mike.
I mean, for our benefit here, I'm going to send Angela a order for a room mic. We can just plug it in with the existing hardware we have and everything. It'll be one more piece, but that will pick up the room, whoever happens to be speaking at the time, be recorded, all that. So for that,
Okay.
Related to that, this is nice that it's here and it's close and it's free, but
Mhm.
it would be nice to have a regular meeting place. Do we have any movement
Sure
towards
would.
that, or?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Qualls did not report on that, but
yeah, well, yeah, that we will.
I have not looked at any additional places. COVID is still in full effect in a lot of places. I can start reaching out to them again. We covered probably what, 7 to 10 places.
How about, I think we all agreed the last time the library would be nice if first nature was not available. So if the library is still available, I think we kind of all agreed on that.
The library has, what about the COVID, they had COVID protocols in place, so you have to still do
Thank you.
6 foot distancing, and they have limited room, people in the room. So it's like, we can revisit it, but I know that one of the issues with the library is that you have to observe COVID protocols.
There would be very many people allowed there
Yeah.
based on the size
It
of the
would be
room.
very limited, yes.
13. The library
I-
was 17,
I'll tell you
The
later.
library was, there was no charge.
17 people.
Yes.
Right.
There was no charge. Some, a lot of the other places I looked into was
To your point,
Wait.
the ballroom just changed hands.
Yeah.
So maybe there's an opportunity there as well with some new management. So it just, you know, this is all right.
We'll
but-
look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, actually. Exactly. This is
We,
here close.
we're of the same mind on that. I mean, we
Well,
would,
And I think we can adjust maybe the tables and have it set up a little bit differently to,
She allows us to do
Yeah.
pretty much whatever we need to do in here.
okay.
So
But the ballroom, if we could get a cooperative agreement there without getting sent from room to room and all that, I mean, it worked for a long time. It just, you know, and that's still in harmony. right?
Yep.
So we'll figure it out.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
seconded.
Motion and second, all
Third
in
and
favor?
fourth and fifth. Aye.
Hearing no opposition,
Aye.
we're out of here.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you. 20,
22.
22.